Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Now, before I get into this video, I'd like to ask you all to please leave a like or comment on the video. Consider subscribing to the channel, and if you dislike the content, please leave a comment. Now, this video is more in the war room, and it is going to be a war room video. So, here is the whole discussion: how to beat the Guardian wall, basically using a MOA or one of the other Guardians to extend a wall of defense. How would you go about defeating it? Now, obviously, if they're running the MOA for the primary defense, they're running the Mauler for the secondary defense because it gives one armor link module. Now, let's talk about how you'd bust through this. If I'm correct, there might be another Guardian in here. Yeah, there is one more. Let's see what it gives. I didn't double check it before I started. Another shield module. Okay. So let's talk about what we would do going up against these Guardians. Now, the first thing you need to do is open it up and look all the way down to the bottom to how much of capacitor they have. Now, this is a way to destroy a wall. So, looking at its capacitor, we know it has 2464 megawatts. Now, this isn't a build video, so I'm not really going to be discussing how to build these vessels. So, so I'm actually just going to be talking about taking them out based on a strategy that you could use. Now, the strategy that I'm deploying is destroying it based off what's this thing? Stats. So, with the ship having just over 3,400 base stats, if you add on the max capacitor fitting that will increase it by 20%, you're going to have 3 3,450 plus 20% times 20 divided by 100. Okay, so maximum this ship can have on its power grid is not power grid, sorry, its capacitor is 4,140 megawatts. Now, you may be thinking that's not that much, and let me show you exactly why this is such a big deal. So, moving down to mid, it's going to use the shield link. Now, where is this? This is group repair, shield repair, shield field module. Okay, now what this is going to do is it's going to extend a field around that helps link everybody's shields together to one ship. And there you go, signature adjustment, power grid cost. And as you can see, it uses 400 gigajoules for every second that it's on. So it's really, really a heavy thing to activate on a ship. No, actually, it doesn't use. And it increases resistance of the shields as well. So the easiest thing to do to one of these ships is actually going to be to knock out their grid. Now, what does that mean? In other words, the moment a ship loses its power on its capacitor, it's generally going to drop these shields. And considering that this is giving you 59% resistance, you could also counter them with the exact same move. So what are you going to need to counter them in an offensive position? Number one, you need one ship running in with a micro warp drive, and this ship is just basically to get you close. Now, the next thing that you're going to need is ships to actually hold your guardians in place so that you can hit them hard and take out their buffs. Now, remember they are 59% more tanky and they already have a ton of resistance to start with. And considering that this module only consumes 1 power a second, means that it's not really going to hurt the entire fleet. So, running against it, you need to have extra power ready to help you out. So, what are going to be your options on taking out the power grid of these ships? Now, you could try medium newts. I'm just going to open it quickly. And there you go. 50 megawatts, it's going to drain 222 gigajoules. If you had to run this non-stop against 4,000, it's going to take 10 hits to take it out. So everybody in your fleet would have to run one just for you to have a chance to knock them out. You know what? Not really the best. Let's look at the bigger one. Absolutely doable, 453 megawatts. You can equip this onto a ship. And look at the drain that it has. It's a massive drain to your power grid. So if you're using any ship that doesn't have a massive power grid, you are going to be taking a knock with this. So all of your strategy is basically going to go on knocking the ship out. Now, if the ship doesn't have its standard resistance and you've taken out all of its power, that means it can't micro warp drive, it can't warp away, it doesn't have any power to counter you in terms of running that shield field. That means all of those vessel shields are down. Now, obviously, it doesn't work with you just going in there once off. To beat this type of strategy with that shield wall, you're going to have multiple players doing this. That means you're going to have two players willing to sacrifice their capacitor just to knock out these ships. So obviously you're going to have a throwaway few vessels, but you're also running a guardian in your fleet, so that is giving you extra shield on them. You have these guys all well blocked up. Now you have to have them in long enough for them to take out these capacitors, and there is also the chance that they are being fed extra capacitance on top of what you are doing. So with just 692 being knocked off a second, that's 2,400, and most power grids will be drained. That's all you're going to get. You're going to get 4 shots with your newt, and then you're going to be done for in terms of using that newt again. So only 4 hits from one ship. So 3 ships to take out one ship. That's what you're basically going to be running, and it isn't really super effective in terms of running that particular setup. Now, what does this mean? That means you're actually going to be running a very, very weird tactic. You're going to be running a Logi fleet into the assault. So they literally going to jump right into the front next to that Moa, or next to that Rapture, or next to the Mauler, and they are going to attack the field. Now, what is that going to do for you as a group? When the field goes down, it means that you can hit that ship way faster. Now, a ship without a capacitor is a very, very big problem. Even if they're being recharged by support ships, just with 3 of you doing this here, you can actually take, with 3 of you actually knocking on each of these ships, you actually can take it all out in almost no time. It'll be 2 hits for one ship, 2 hits for the second ship, and all of the capacitors will be down. And if they are being fed capacitance, that means whichever ship is doing it is also feeding them of a remote transfer of capacitor. And that means that the capacitor on that chip is draining tremendously. If they're running group transmitter, that means they're draining even faster. So basically, if they're just running the transmitters to each of them to give them capacitor, that's where they will gain power for them and be able to run it up for a little bit longer. However, by you knocking down the power on that ship so far, if I am correct, it keeps recharging in that same manner, or the field runs out for a certain amount of time. Let me just double check that one more time. Shield field module. If the shield field module doesn't have a timer, then I'm not exactly sure on what you could do about it. Activation time 20 seconds, reactivation delay 10 seconds. Yeah. So we already know it's costing 400 gigajoules right now each time it activates. So as I said, you can really, really hit this thing hard. Now, knocking out that 400 gigajoules off it to give a boost, the moment it can't do it again for several seconds in a row, all you've got to do is blast at it non-stop. So for the 10 seconds that it's down, you're going to hit the ship non-stop. And what that's going to do to this vessel is it's going to leave it defenseless. Now, by knocking out the shield and the armor repair, you make sure that the ships can't be repaired easily. And if they are running lodges to help them, they can only run lodges for 2 minutes. Now, sorry, I'm saying lodges. Support vessels, they can only run it for 2 minutes. Now, the reason behind this whole tactic on taking out a shield wall is the moment that shield drops completely, and the moment you've neutered them completely down to 0, the fight now opens up a new possibility. Remember, you're also running the exact same thing for this breaching fleet. And remember, you are going to lose members from this entire team. Your team is just basically a throwaway. Now, once you get into place, there's going to be a second or a third team that's going to warp into the exact same position as you. And this team is coming in for heavy assault. you only attack these Guardian vessels. So once all the Guardians are out, their entire front line defense is now open to assault. You're still going to run into hard to beat enemies, but newts always work on tanks. So you always take a newt to a tank and you take off their ability to shield boost or armor repair. And what this is going to do, it's also going to knock out their ability to extend shields or extend armor. And without the extended armor or extended shield, the field support that they're using, basically their invulnerability fields, is all they have on their ships. And if you have enough newt power, enough guys running newts with Norse, you could actually knock out all of their power. Now, remember the rule um, in PvP is Norse only works on opponents with more power than you, and Newts only can knock out a certain amount of power. So the Newt works no matter what. The Norse doesn't work if they have less power than you. So if you have a ship with a 1000 with a 2000 gigajoule capacitor, and they are running a ship with 4000 gigajoules, and they've just started with this year, you're still going to be able to drain them. You just activate all your slots to make sure that your energy is dropping quickly. You have extra power, extra field strength, extra shield regen. Remember, even though you're in that armor link, you want to make sure that you have all of these benefits going for you. And you drain and you hit and you hit and you hit. And at the end of it, if you have enough Norse running for you, even this 500 gigajoules that you're spending every few seconds, you're going to be able to recover it. And by the time you have actually knocked out these big ships and your power grid is right there at the edge of 100 or 200 gigajoules, you're going to be able to get back into the fight within a matter of seconds. So, what ships would you run in this type of assault? Well, you can run trainers. Your your ships to run this on will be trainers, and I'll show you why. Let me just open it out quickly. I do have a trainer which would be similar to the setup. Let's go into it. Because as I said, you're also going to be losing the ship, and the large newts aren't super expensive, so purchasing them and running them isn't really going to hurt you. Okay, wait, that was the cost of them. As you saw, it's not so expensive. And let's look at its power grid. 1592 gigajoules. Right, power grid is 483 megawatts. If you've already maxed out your skills, you have something near, let's see, 40% of 400. You just have over 600 power on the ship, so you can just slot it in and run it on the strainer. It is going to drain your power like mad, so be careful about trying to run the strategy. Remember, they are throwaway ships. They're only running that one approach in the front. You might not be able to run Norse on these trainers. I was a little bit wrong on the power grid. I thought they had 600 power grids each. Looks like I did make a mistake. I was running off the wrong calculation. I think I was here. Yeah, I did run with the wrong ship's calculation. So you could run it on a trainer. The only catch is you're not going to be able to really use big amounts of Norse. And Norse is 83 a piece. So wait, what was it? I said there's 500 on the sale. Let's see what it is at 50%. 40%. Uh, it's 700. So let's go back to those mids. Let's see if we can figure out a solution, because you only have two slots. So at 200, let's see what's that energy drain I was talking about. Oh, it only costs 50 megawatts. No, that's medium. 453, so 7 minus 4. Yeah, you can still run your Norse and a shield repair. So basically, that's everything that's going to run on your ship. So you're really not equipping it to fight, you're just equipping it to help you out in combat. And remember, these ships will go down, so make sure you don't overspend on them. Don't buy a high level Norse like this one here, because the number one problem with it is its price. It's very expensive. Running an expensive build on these ships isn't going to help you. I just ran two MK5s and it's going to help you, not two, sorry, it's one MK5 on your trainer, and your low slot is where the rest of your power is going to go for your grid. Remember, you still have quite a bit of grid left if you have your mastered engineering. Now, if you don't have engineering and you're running this, you're going to have to be very careful about your low slots. You might just be able to run one shield repair at 55 megawatts and another one or two small items. Now, even though I'm talking about taking out those Moa Guardians with this tactic isn't foolproof. Now, when I say it isn't foolproof, I mean if you go and you attack this hard into the enemy, there's a strong chance they're going to counter you and defeat you. That's why you always run resistance on all of those ships. So, a field invulnerability, that's the cheapest one you can get. I'll just open it here. Shield Hardener, basically. You're going to run the red MK5. Now, the reason why I'm saying run MK5 is you want the cheapest possible cost. So overall, this year may cost you just around 20 million to set up this assault vessels, but they aren't really going to hurt you all that much in terms of combat. So you run it in close, you really hail down on that firepower, and you make sure that everything is going down very quickly. Now, once everything starts to drop on your enemy and the shield has fallen, that is when you can push through. Now, this is basically a theoretical assault, and I am counting on the fact that the rest of the fleet is also engaged in battle in multiple areas. You're only running 3 fleets of this particular strategy. So, one is the assault fleet assigned to these 3, the other is the Newt fleet, basically, who's sitting with the Moa Guardians, who's jumping in front there with you guys to take out the other Guardians. And then you are running in your 3rd fleet, which is basically a repeat of the Newt fleet with another Guardian in there. Now, those assault vessels can also run a Guardian amongst them so that they can have shield invulnerability fields and everything up, and you can run a heavy assault field for this. So, if you're running a ton of cyclones or hurricanes, that's going to actually do a tremendous amount of damage. You can run that into this fight. And when you do this here and you've neutered them correctly, if you have a bigger fleet of newts, now let's say for example that neuting fleet where I said is running a Moa Guardian, let me break down exactly what's going to go into it. 4 of the Caracal trainers or 4 of another trainer which has a bigger power grid, it doesn't matter which trainer it is. All you need is to have Cruiser Advanced Engineering mastered. So Cruiser Advanced Engineering, you need to have no, you don't need to have command. You don't have to have much of any other effects. So this basically is something which you can just use without having too many other things added to your entire strength of your vessel. Now with it, you're going to need the 4 in the front, so that's 4 out of 10 gone for your newts. If all 4 of them engage at 2 hits per ship, that's 600 times 4. Basically, they'll take out half of the capacitor instantly. If they all activate for 2 hits in a row, they'll wipe out a complete capacitor in that time, and the ship will remain motionless for that time when you've knocked it out. So that will be 4,800 gigajoules worth of power gone instantly. If there is a support vessel trying to help out that ship, it's not going to get away. They really going to hurt you. Now, the next thing to this whole encounter and this whole play is I noticed that my shield boats were ineffective against Galante space enemies because of the fact that they run newts so heavily. And when a large newt hit my CNI, I just dropped straight out of power. That's because it's newting me at 600, not 600, 558 megawatts per hit, and I drain my capacitor down to less than 50% very fast. So with all the drainage that I was giving my capacitor, when that newt hit me just for 1 or 2 hits, it made such a big difference that my capacitor dropped almost to 0. I had to warp away to recharge because I was in the bottom 10% of my capacitor already. And my capacitor did die before I warped away, so I didn't have any power left. So running those big newts against these types of formations is a very good idea. Hitting ships with this here is going to knock them down. Now, if you're running this Moa destructive fleet, you can actually use it against other players who try to use this tactic against you. So if you are running a defensive fleet and you know that your enemy is going to deploy something like this, you can actually newt them back. Now, I obviously don't have a ship setup like this. I sold my large newts yesterday. They weren't that expensive. I'm not even sure why they were showing so expensive in the market. Let me just go to it. I didn't make 10 million of my large newts. I think I made less than a million of it. I think I might have sold too early or something like that. Oh no, I'm looking at the wrong one. I'm looking at the moat. Yeah, this is the expensive version. I would have had a caltrop. Yeah, not really the most expensive thing to use. A million a piece, yeah, I could see myself using it on a trainer vessel to throw it away in combat. It's not going to work out very good for me in terms of long term combat, but considering its drain, I could run it to help out the fleet. So if I were in a Logi fleet and sorry, I'm saying Logi in a support fleet basically. So the four, okay, I didn't finish this fleet yet. Sorry, four trainers in the front, your Moa Guardian, and your Mauler Guardian. You have to run both, otherwise your fleet is very paper thin. You can actually hit through them very simply. So with 1 and 1, you have a good enough defense to hold off most assaults, and that is going to be your frontliners, right? So that's six out of this entire fleet gone. What are you going to have for the remaining four? Now, having some assault in this fleet is going to help you. You could run assault with them, but as I said, you're going to run a pure assault fleet with it. So it's three fleets collaborating to do the exact same thing at the exact same time. So, how do you do this? You have meetup points and you'll warp together to certain locations. 50 kilometers out, we're all moving in at this point, right? Warp into this point, right? There we go. Now, the next thing to know about what you're going to need in this entire formation is support vessels. Support vessels for energy transfer. Now, if you do remember, I was speaking about the Osprey. The Osprey can also do this exact same thing in a way, but it's just direct effect. So, running the Osprey with its energy transfer abilities, fantastic idea. You're running your support up with more power. So, every time your MOA goes online, you can do this here. And you only need to run two Ospreys to give yourself enough additional transmitter. So, what does that mean for the remaining two slots? You can repeat your Guardian and you can repeat your Guardians again in the back. So you're going to be able to hold up for 20 seconds of invulnerability. Then you're going to have a 10-second gap where you're going to be able to be attacked. Then your invulnerability will go up again for 20 seconds, and you're going to be able to keep recycling this entire tactic. Plus the fact that your fleet is 30 man strong to break a single wall. You most probably won't lose any ships, provided you are running this correctly. And as I said, those frontline ships are running shield boost and armor boost. If they're running weapons and they need to run weapons to minimize the cost on their grid, I'm working it out with this one here, 400 megawatts plus, let's go to the Norse, 400 plus, where is it? No, wrong one. MK5. 400 plus 69, that's 469. And they have four weapon slots, so they could still run missiles. They could still run mediums. They still have 200 megawatts left on their ship. And as I said, this is a very cheap build, so let's see exactly what you can run on it. Come on, close up. Rapids are the cheapest in terms of power, so let's just see exactly what the power we have here is. Oh, 30 megawatts times 5 times 4, 120. You're still safe on your power grid. 120, that's 620 megawatts. You're still way under where you need to be. Let's go to the low and Aryan, the Hardener, that's 1 megawatt. You're still under your 700 megawatt limit. Let's see. Shield booster. We're not going for the Lone Rangers. We're not going civilian. We could go civilian. But no, we'll go MK5 on the mediums. 39, you still have excess power, and that's all you really need on that ship. Now, what else can you run on the ship to make those frontliners a little bit less power hungry? You can increase their boost amounts. You can do all of this with level 1 rigs. So only use level 1 rigs on them, anything that you can get for free, anything that's super cheap, and that's how you build up that frontline defense. And what this here means for you in terms of combat is into the front line can break a shield wall. Even though it's such a cheap build on those four ships, and those four ships most probably only cost you somewhere near one, two. Let me just check how much those weapons were. That's most probably the most expensive part of the build. If you are running the weapons on them, remember running the weapons isn't a major part of this whole build. The more important part to this build is running your newts, which is the more expensive part in there. 250 each, so basically about a million for the weapon, a million for the newt, a million altogether, 3 million. So basically about 10 million to run the ship. 10 million to run it into the front line to disrupt the shield wall. And that's times 4, so 40 million on your front line with your two big expensive ships in there for your shield and armor defense. So yeah, that's going. It does get expensive at that point, and you can double it over to have non-stop defense so that fleet can keep running through. And the fact that you have the two big ships there with you to affect the guys who you are fighting. Remember, pulling down their shields and everything is going to be highly effective. The one thing that I didn't discuss was the fact that you're not going to be running a regen in those rigs for the engineering. It's going to be one capacitor boost at 20% and um, one capacitor boost and one navigation rig. So you're boosting the capacitor by 20% to give you that little bit of extra. It's already boosted by 40%. So 40 plus 20 is a 60% boost overall. And that will leave your system at somewhere near 2200, 2400 capacitor. And this means that you can last in the fight just a little bit longer. You have 4 hits from your newt to take out a ship. So 2 on the Moa Guardian from each of your 4 players. And remember, it's 2 fleets of this debuffers basically. So 4 of them can actually hit at one time from one fleet and 4 from the other fleet. That means 8 hits at one go. It will be a one shot to each of those vessels to render them powerless. And when they go down, everything goes down with them. That shield defense that they have up will only last a few seconds. And if you keep hitting like this here, let's say that they did have Ospreys providing capacitor, you can knock out the Ospreys as well. That will mean that entire fleet doesn't have power by the time you start firing. And when you start firing, you're running on very little power because you're counting on that grid support basically from your field defense, and you can just keep hitting non-stop at this point. If you hit correctly, you'll be able to destroy the Moa Guardians in no time. You'll be able to destroy the Mauler Guardians in no time. And I think the total amount of time this entire debuff and destruction should take is less than a minute. So in 1 minute, that entire fleet will be gone. And you might be thinking to yourself, that's 60 seconds to regain power on those other vessels. Remember, you can leave their field invulnerability fields on, and they don't have to shield boost non-stop when they're in the shield field. But the moment the field goes down, they need to boost up if they're taking hits. And you can keep jumping from fleet to fleet, knocking them out in this way. If you knock out the 2 in the front line, if your Guardian goes down before they have any support put on it, that means that you have the ability to just keep running through all of this fleet. You'll knock out one line, warp away, knock out another line, warp away, and that is the method in which you're going to fight. If they decide to disrupt your fleet, then you keep fighting and you keep going at it because you're still going to have the advantage. Remember, you hurt their defense. Without defense, their offense becomes glass because that's what they are using it for, to run high offense with the minimum needed for defense. So that is another thing you can do. And if you destroy all of the Guardians anything that they're using as snipers, basically the sniper building regular ships, are going to go down like quick, easy blast through. So you're just going to blast through all of them, and you're going to have your quick route right through all of the enemies. Now, when I said this ship is going to run those low rigs, remember you're using low cost equipment on it to save on costs. Those front four are going to be lost 90% of the time. It is something that will happen, especially in long, dragged out battles where numbers exceed 50. So if it's 50 on 50, you definitely have a chance of losing one or two of those ships in the front. The Guardians don't really have that much of a chance of going down. The the assault fleet that you have has a chance of losing ships, so you can run it as an expensive assault fleet or a cheap assault fleet. It's purely up to you. But this is a way to play in the wars. That's because of field defense around stations. So this is another way to break shield walls. This is an offensive tactic. Now, previously I spoke about how you break a camp. Now you just dock and you undock, and you can actually beat them by spreading out correctly. Now, I don't know if we're getting anything which is going to help you with a fight, but I hope that this was a good enough discussion. Thank you all for watching and have a good day.